Good afternoon, friends in Oldish land. So nice of you to join us today. Thank you for taking the time. My name is Karen Brown. I'm your host. I'm also the publisher and editor of The Oldish. This week, we're going to take a look at the articles that we published on theoldish.com this week. We're going to take a look at dementia and how to keep it far, far away from you. These are things that you can control. And we're going to take a look at news from around the world of the Oldish. And we have an update on a story we brought you last week. So let's get started. This week on The Oldish, we published an article about helping aging parents plan for the future. Now, if you yourself are the aging parent and you haven't yet brought in one of your grown adult children or the person to whom you give your financial responsibility or intend to give your financial responsibility, it's time to do that. It's time to have the discussions about where the money is, where the insurance is, but primarily what your wishes are so that they understand how to move forward. There will be times as we get older that we all remember what we want, and there will be times when we kind of forget what we told people we wanted. So we need that steady conversation while we are still cognitively well. If you are the adult child of an aging parent, it's time you had those conversations too. You can check on theoldish.com for articles about how to get the process started, but really it's time, sooner than later. It's not a very comfortable conversation, I should say. It is an uncomfortable subject to talk about money, particularly with people of our parents' and grandparents' age. They typically kept their money pretty close to the chest, but it's their money. When they can't manage it anymore, you need to know what their wishes are. Robotic kidneys. Now, we talked about this a little bit last week, and it's coming. Robotic kidneys are coming. If they haven't started already, they're about to start trials with pigs, and then they're going to move on to human trials. And it is the hope to have robotic kidneys available for human use within 2 years. In 2 years' time, the end of dialysis, the end of kidney replacement for the next generation. Can you believe it? I'm really excited about that possibility. Exercise lowers the risk for dementia. Well, we know that, and we're going to talk about it a little bit coming up in our next segment. But there was a 14-year study that came out with 191 women that is very significant in terms of the benefits of exercise. So over the course of 14 years, they studied these 191 senior women. They found that 5% of them eventually became affected with dementia. The normal statistic, according to alz.org, which is the Alzheimer's Society's main page, is that women 71 years of age and over tend to see 16% of them develop dementia. 16%. So if you can incorporate some daily exercise into your routine and reduce your risk of dementia down to 5%, wouldn't you? I know I would. Now, this is a story that doesn't make me really happy. It's called Our Smartphones Dumbing Us Down. I depend on my smartphone a lot, like really a lot, for everything. But this story actually makes sense to me. It has to do with the fact that our smartphones, our tablets, our computers are bringing us so much information all of the time. Emails are popping in, texts are popping up, stories are coming, Facebook is refreshing. We're paying attention to a lot of things, but to each thing only a short period of time. And what's happening is that because of the short amount of time we're giving each item, it doesn't have a chance to embed itself in our long-term memory. So it's actually contributing to dementias. Does that make sense? Makes a lot of sense to me, and I'm very sad about that. Chapter 17 of A.J. Jones' Dementia Journey with Her Mother was published just yesterday. Now, this is a very heartwarming story. If any of you have not yet read it, but are looking after aging parents, it would be a really good series to start reading, because at some point along A.J.'s journey, you're going to relate. I promise you, you're going to relate. So keep an eye on that. I know that there are 2 or 3 more installments planned, so keep up to date, but there are 17 chapters now. Knitting, staving off dementia and calming anxiety is a story that got a lot of attention. It got almost 250 shares and over 700 different kinds of reactions, likes, smiles, whatnot on Facebook. So that is something that is of great interest to most of us. If you read that story, you will find out that knitting reduces your heart rate, lowers your blood pressure. It can combat dementia, depression, but all the while hold off dementia. So it is definitely something to consider taking up. You know, I started knitting when I was pregnant the first time. I started knitting a baby blanket. I had no idea how to cast on, still don't. My former husband did know how to cast on, so he did it for me, and I started knitting this baby blanket. I didn't finish it, but with the next pregnancy, I picked it up again and kept on going. So I've got this sort of partial baby blanket knitted. I have no idea how to cast off. It's okay, don't write to me. I know that there are lots of YouTube articles that will show me how to cast off, but I still don't have a complete blanket. This article, though, inspires me to consider picking it up again and carrying on with that blanket, maybe for a grandchild. We'll see. So let's this week talk about how to keep your brain active and dementia away from your door. Knitting we've already talked about. These articles, by the way, these things I'm going to talk about are all available on theoldish.com. You just have to search for it. So if you're a member, you can read all of these articles one after another. Membership, by the way, I've said it before, it's free. It's free. Just get yourself a membership. You can create libraries of stories to help you on your aging journey. And there are lots of tools too under our toolkit section for you. But anyway, back to the articles, keeping your brain active and dementia away from your door. We've just talked about the knitting article, and of course that's very important. Any kind of crafting, reading, playing games, they all tend to have the same kind of effect on your heart rate and your blood pressure. Plus, all of these activities tend to be social. So you can do them in groups, and there's a lot of social engagement that can happen with them. If you're sitting with a bunch of people and you don't know what to do and you don't have your knitting needles with you, try something that you may remember from elementary school. How about an old-fashioned spelling bee? That'll get the brain active. I remember spelling bees when I was in grade 1 up to about grade 6, and then I don't remember them past that time. I don't know if they even do it anymore, but a spelling bee is really good to start searching your memory for words and letters. Being married helps keep dementia away. I know for all you singletons out there, you may not be very happy to hear this, but being married is actually a good thing to have in your toolkit to keep dementia away. And I think it has to do with the engagement. You know, you wake up in the morning and you may have a conversation with your partner, and together as a couple, you engage in social activities that singletons wouldn't necessarily take part in. Perhaps they're shy or they don't want to go alone, but as a married couple, you don't think anything of it. So being married is a good thing. It is spring now. Today is the first full day of spring, and that brings with it maple syrup season. And maple syrup is a good thing to use to stave off dementia as well. So it contains some antioxidants that are found in berries, which protect our brains from free radical cells. Did you know that? Maple syrup. A study out of the University of Toronto links maple syrup with a way to prevent the clumping of proteins in the brain that are associated with Alzheimer's disease. So how about put the brown sugar away and put a little bit of maple syrup on top of that oatmeal in the morning. Dance. Not only dance like no one's watching, but dance turns out to be a really good activity. Not only does it move your body, but the choreography involved in something like ballroom dancing is helpful to your memory because you've got to remember all of those steps in a predefined sequence. So get out there and dance. If you're not married, you may find a man who wants to dance too, or a woman. You never know. Eating a hybrid blend of the Mediterranean and DASH diets is said to be good for keeping dementia at bay. Now, again, you can read this on our site, but I'll give you the high points. Eat fish weekly. 3 servings of whole grains a day, vegetables in a salad every day, snack on nuts, eat beans, use olive oil as your primary oil, and 1 glass of wine a day. Doesn't say whether it's red or white, but not more than 1. A lot of diets don't even allow you that, so go for it. 1 glass of wine a day. Search on theoldish.com the word blueberries. You'll find an article about blueberries that tells you all of this information, and it also tells you the things to avoid. So I'm not going to be a Debbie Downer and tell you the things to avoid on this diet, but those are some of the things that you can do for your diet anyway. An Italian study has found that 1 or 2 cups of coffee per day helps keep cognitive function high. It can be a latte, it can be a cappuccino, it can be an American coffee, it can be whatever kind of coffee you want, but just 1 or 2 cups. Move, exercise regularly. This has been a common theme today, but move. A Western University study reports that older adults who are physically active are 40% less likely to develop Alzheimer's disease. Have a positive attitude. Does that really go without saying? Yesterday was International Day of Happiness. So for those of you who follow us on Instagram, and if you don't, that's at The Oldish, you will notice from yesterday that we posted a little picture with a quote on there from Dr. Albert Schweitzer, who said, "Happiness is nothing more than good health and a bad memory." Now, I think in terms of a bad memory, Dr. Schweitzer was not talking about dementia. Dr. Schweitzer was talking about forgetting the bad things, putting them to rest, making peace with the past, and amplifying the good that's in your life. So there you go. A bad memory for bad things. Looking after your grandkids 1 day a week can help, but not 5. If your adult children are asking you to look after the grandchildren every week, 1 day, maybe 2 days might be okay. But studies have found that grandparents who look after grandchildren a full 5 days a week or more end up going to their doctor for help with depression. It's not a good thing. Social isolation has been described as the #1 health risk of our day. So as we talked earlier, if you're married, you're less likely to be socially isolated. But whether you are married or perhaps you just prefer solitude, it really is important to get out and engage. Now, we're not talking about texting or emailing or even FaceTiming and Skyping. Those don't count. What counts are the number of interactions you have with real people face-to-face on a daily basis. So you might go to the grocery store to get that loaf of bread, and along the way you meet a neighbor, you chat with the cashier, you might go to the post office, buy stamps, and talk with the postmaster while you're in the process of making your purchase. You might go to the library in the afternoon for a book club or a knitting circle. In the evening, you might play pickleball. It's those kinds of face-to-face social interactions that release all those good hormones and keep you happy and healthy. Keep your brain healthy, more importantly. So make sure you talk to a lot of people in a day and engage with them seriously. Don't just pass by people and be shy. Actually talk to them. We were talking about dance earlier, and if you happen to be one of our readers or viewers who lives in Australia, particularly in Queensland, you need to look up the Gladstone Seniors Dance Club. They're looking for some men. They have 11 female members, but they need more than the 4 men they currently have. They don't care if you're young or old, if you can dance or not. They just want you there to partner with their 11 females. Elderly people in Japan are intentionally getting themselves arrested these days. It seems that they view the huskow as a better life than the life they were leading outside of jail. So they're committing these petty crimes and getting themselves arrested, but the strain on the jail system is becoming something of a concern for the jail keepers and the authorities. What they're finding is that the people who work in the jails are spending way more time helping their now elderly inmates with tasks of daily living. That might be a social problem for the Japanese government to look at. Fraudsters are targeting seniors more frequently than ever these days, and although mail and telephone scams still take the cake, technology is starting to come into play. So they're being targeted through smartphones and computers, and the social media posts that are coming along tend to lend some legitimacy to these fraudulent emails and so forth that you're getting. The Department of Justice in the US says that over $1 billion has been scammed from US citizens alone in the past year. Did you hear that? 1 billion with a B, $1 billion. It's a lot of money. 70% of those scams begin with a phone call. As it happens, I have a phone call that I can play for you that was a Canada revenue scam from a computer-generated voice that we received in our office just yesterday. So I'm going to play it for you so that you have a sense of what this might sound like.
Hello, this call is from the Tax Department of Canada Revenue Agency. The reason behind this call is that there is a case, a lawsuit, that is getting filed under your name. The moment you receive this message, I need you to get back to me on my department division number. That is 778-404-1563. I repeat, 778-404-1563. Now, if I don't hear a call from you, we will have to issue an arrest warrant under your name and get you arrested. So get back to me as soon as possible. Thank you.
Does that sound legitimate to you? Well, it's not. The telephone number that they say to call can change, so don't pay attention to the number there. In fact, when I took that recording to our local police station, they said the numbers change all the time. And sometimes the numbers that have been used are the numbers for the police station. So they're pretty bold. The calls are not always computer generated either. Sometimes they're real people. I can't speak for the system in the US, but I know that in Canada, Canada Revenue Agency has spent a good deal of time making sure that the citizens of Canada know that the CRA would never make a phone call like that. So if you get a phone call that sounds like that is a recording, delete it or hang up. And if it is a real live person saying those kinds of things to you, hang up. It's not legitimate. Canada Revenue will not scam you. Now, as I've told you before, we have Constable Jamie coming to talk with us at the end of June. He's going to talk about scams that target seniors, and that will certainly be one of them. Okay, so plan to tune in for that. Again, we're going to give you lots of notice, but that call literally just hit our office answering machine yesterday. I wanted to let you know what it sounds like, because until I heard that, I had heard about the calls, but I had never heard one of the calls. All right, yesterday, as I said, was International Happiness Day, so it's appropriate for us to report that happiness tends to start falling off when we hit the age of 18. I guess that's maybe when we all start to have to pay bills and get jobs and realize that the world is a little more serious than we thought it was. And it takes a little bit of a dip. It's a U-curve. In our 40s is probably when we are least happy, according to the data. But once we hit our 60s, we tend to get as happy as we have ever been. Of course, it doesn't work for everybody, but statistically, the vast majority of 60-plus-year-olds are very, very happy people. Now, it does take another dip the last year or two of life, but then I suppose health concerns are playing into one's happiness. But in general, once we hit 60, all that wisdom and so forth is making us content, which is perhaps a better measure of happiness. I want to bring you an update that we did on a story last week that was Dr. Mel Ona. He was giving us a live colonoscopy. And that was a really fascinating video to watch. Dr. Mel Ona has just texted me just before we went live on the air to send me a copy of a TV interview that he had done. And it has to do with a diet that will keep your colon happy. So I'm going to post that as soon as I can on our Facebook page, and I'm going to post it on theoldish.com as well, so that you can see that interview and get a sense of the kind of diet during Colorectal Health Month that will keep your colon happy and keep everything working the way that it should. Well, that's it. That's all for now. Thank you for joining us this week on the Oldish Live, and I certainly invite you to come back next Wednesday at noon to join us for our next edition. Until then, everybody be well, and remember that it does take a village to age a senior.